Hi guys, so I'm going to be modeling how to do a research paper. Now I'm going to start at the same places that you guys are, using the same forms, so that way you guys can see like step by step how this is going to play out. Now this video is going to go through every single step, but we're going to be focusing on one step at a time for each class period. But this is here as a reference so you can look ahead, but also so that way you can look back if you need a refresher. All right, so let's get started. So my research paper question is, what are some examples of Roman legacies in art, architecture, and literature? So I'm not doing my paper on ancient Greece, I'm doing it on ancient Rome. And specifically, what are some examples of the legacies, something that has influenced or been left behind for long periods of time that has been a big achievement in Roman culture, in art, architecture, and literature. So I'm going to look for that. So the first thing that I'm going to do, and what I recommend you guys do for your Greece papers, is that you take a look in your textbook. So this came from the textbook, and I've already read it once, twice, 3 times, and kind of thought about it, about what I really want my 3-body paragraph topics on. So I'm going to be using this as my first research resource, and I'm able to quote the book. The book is a resource that we're allowed to use in our research papers, and it's already here. We've already read it before, so you guys are more than welcome and actually encouraged to use this as a starting point. Okay, so I'm using mine as my starting point. So I have my research paper notes here, and it's the same paper that you guys are going to be using when we go over it. So we have research paper notes, the planning stage of the research paper. All right, so right now I'm in my planning stage. I just started, and all I have is my question, just like that's how you guys are starting. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in my document. So that way I know what my research question is, so I can refer back to it. So what were some examples of Roman legacies in art, architecture, and literature? So now I'm going to brainstorm some specific topics that I can talk about to help you answer this research question. What are some examples of legacies in art, architecture, and literature? Let's see. So what I'm thinking is maybe one body paragraph could be about the specific art forms the Romans used. And let's see here. Let's go back, because I remember they said something about specific art forms. Let's see if I can find that again. Oh, they were frescoes. So frescoes could be one that I mentioned. Ooh, portraits could be another. And there was another one down here I could use. Oh yeah, they're sculptures. So I'm going to put that, since that's what I remember from my book, is maybe the specific art forms used. Frescoes, portraits, and sculptures. All right. So those are the 3 that I'm going to maybe do when I do this. What's another thing I can do? What were some examples of Roma's legacies in art, architecture, and literature? I guess I could do one on architecture, because I have to give some examples of that. So let's do, what did that book say? Let's go back to my architecture page, because this is going to help me just get some ideas. It said something about architecture. Oh, the engineering techniques, right. So I want to maybe do it on the engineering techniques that they used when they did architecture. So engineering techniques with architecture. Okay, so that would be another topic. And then literature here is the last thing. So I have something that covers art, and I have something that covers architecture, something that covers literature. Not yet, but let's go see. Let's refer back to the book. All right, so, it talks about how many of these works have served as models. So I could talk about that. So let's put that down. That's an idea. So let's see. Roman literature. Okay, made a mistake. Literature. Serving as a model for today. So that might be something to talk about. Let's see. Ooh, I could talk specifically about the authors they had. So I could talk about Virgil and Ovid. Maybe I just talk about Virgil and Ovid. And Ovid, these are just topics to cover, so I don't need complete sentences, just topics. Let's see. Ooh, or maybe I could talk about satire. Talk about satire. Let's see. Maybe I could just talk about frescoes. So just a whole paragraph just about frescoes. Why cover all three? All right. So let's see. So now in my planning stage of my research paper, so I have my research question, and I used my question to come up with topics as well as my textbook. So this is a good way to start. Now, let's see. Pick the strongest that will support the answer for your research question. All right, so I came up with some topics. What were some examples? That's kind of my keyword here. I'm going to bold that so that way I remember. So what are some examples? So these are examples: Virgil, Ovid, satire, and fresco. So those are some examples. Engineering techniques, yeah, that's really cool and all, but I just don't think that that would work. So let's see. So actually, I'm going to keep that there because it's good to see where I was. So I don't think I should do that. I do think I should do all three art forms. These are examples. I think I should do all three. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it right there because I want my first body paragraph to talk about that. My second body paragraph, I want it to be about architecture, but I don't have anything here that talks about examples of architecture. So what were some examples? So let's go back to my book and let's see if we can actually find some examples. So let's see. It talks about architecture was largely based on older Greek designs. All right. Some examples. Oh, let's see here. Oh, so the Roman vaults. That was this thing over here. I remember reading about it. This was a vault. It was a combination of arches, and it was an example of the Roman architecture, and they used it in the Colosseum. So I could even bring up the Colosseum as an example. The building's design was based on many arches, vaults, and hallmarks of Roman engineering. Ooh, so I might want to do this. I might want to go ahead and put in my research paper, so engineering techniques. Let's do vaults and arches. And now that I've added this, I can go ahead and copy because it's talking about those specific examples right here. Just like portraits and sculptures and frescoes were examples. Those are what I'm looking for. So what are some examples of these legacies? So these are some examples of the architecture, and I can talk even about, I can put here in my notes, do the Colosseum. And let's double check. C-O-L, Colosseum. I spelled wrong. That's okay. There we go, Colosseum. So I can put this in my paper as well. So that way I remember, hey, you want to mention the Colosseum as an example of how they use those vaults and arches. So I'm going to go ahead and put that here. And then my third one, I was talking about examples. So what are some examples of literature? So Roman literature serving as a model for today. It's not really an example. Virgil and Ovid, what they did, let's go back to the textbook and just look. So it talked about how Virgil wrote a great epic. That would be an example. Ovid wrote poems about Roman mythology, so I could write about that. And then I should probably do just about satire. So I think if I did all three of these as examples, that might be good. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to combine these two topics into one topic. That's going to be my third body paragraph because I think that's the strongest that will support my research question, the answer to my research question. So I'm going to put Virgil and Ovid. Let's go ahead, put them there. And satire. So we're going to do all three. We're going to do all three because those are our examples. And I'm going to go ahead and bold these so that way I remember that these are my examples too. All right, so let's just recap right now. So I'm still in the planning stage of my research paper. I have my research question. What are some examples of Roman legacies in art, architecture, and literature? So then I brainstormed some specific topics, and I did that by going to my textbook because it's a text that I already know is true and credible. And I used that to just come up with some topics because I can't just research this question. I need to come up with some specific topics that I want to talk about in my paper. So I did that. So I came up with a couple, and I realized that a few of mine didn't 100% do what I wanted them to do in order to answer my research question. So I went back to the book and I found things to add to certain questions to make them valuable pieces to my paper. I even had to combine 4 and 5 for my third body paragraph, and that's okay. The second box here is just your brainstorming box, and you might come across oh, I brainstormed this, but it doesn't necessarily fit. And then you just figure out a way to make it fit. You come up with a way for it to work to your advantage and come up with an example. It doesn't mean you have to start from scratch. It just means that you have to go back in and be a little bit more specific to make sure that you are answering that research question, okay? So let's go down to the next one. All right, so let's see. So now I am in my note taking. Okay, so I have my body paragraph here. So I have an example. All right, so I have my title of my article, the author, date, book, and website. Okay, so I have to include this. Oh, this came from another Roman one. Okay, so Rome as a republic before Caesar. Oh, this came from the model paper we were doing in class. Okay, so then there's quotes here. All right, I think I understand how to do this. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So my first topic is specific art forms used, Romans used. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that for my body paragraph 1, and that is my topic. So I can go ahead and paste it right there. All right, so specific art forms. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to go to Google. And I'm going to go ahead and type that in. That's my topic. Let's see if I can find this. All right. So I see ancient EU. So I already know that's a good one. Ooh, Khan Academy would be another good source to use. Let's see. So I think I'm going to start there. I think I'm going to start with ancient EU. Let's go there for the encyclopedia. All right. So I see that Roman art is my title. My author here is Mark Cartwright. It was published September 1st, 2017. So it's pretty recent. That's good. All right. So then I'm going to go through here and I'm going to find some things on the art that I want to do. So I wanted to talk about the frescoes and the sculptures. Ooh, so I see Roman sculptures. Key art forms. Perfect. So I think that this is going to be a really good source to use for my paper. So let's see. So it inspired Greek sculptures. All right. Oh, they were copies of earlier Greek masterpieces. I remember my textbook talking about that and how it was really important, because if not, then we wouldn't have known what the Greeks did, because a lot of it was lost in their wars. All right. So see, I can use this as a way to write my paper. So what I'm going to do is go through this, and then I'm going to come back when I have my information. All right. Okay, guys, so I'm going to go ahead. So I read this article, and it's a pretty good article. It has the key art forms of Roman sculpture that I wanted, and it has a link here to another website that I can use. And it has about the Roman wall paintings, which were the frescoes. The one thing I couldn't find were the portraits. I wanted specific information on portraits, but so I was looking at that, and I decided, well, I will get some information about the Roman sculptures and the Roman frescoes. So I went ahead and I got some notes. So I grabbed this quote and I put the title of the article, the author's name, the date of the article, and then the website. So I did that, and that's on sculptures. And then I grabbed one from Fresco. So I copied and pasted this word for word. Again, I put the title and the author and the article. So what I did here was I just copied and pasted this whole box right here. So this whole box right here, I just copied and pasted it right here. So that way it was just easier for me. I didn't have to retype the whole entire thing. And then I saw one more thing about an example of a fresco I could mention in my paper. And then I did the same thing, just copy and paste. So I have 3 good quotes here, and it's from a source. What I could also do is talk about what was in my book. My book is a source. So I'll go back in here, and I want to talk about the portraits. So it talked here about they were particularly skilled at creating portraits or pictures of people. When they made a portrait, artists tried to show the subject's personality. Okay, and then we can guess a great deal about individual Romans by studying their portraits. So what I want to do is copy that. Now, I may have to split screens so that way I can easily type it word for word, because I want to do it in a quote. So we're going to make both of these screens smaller. And let's see, I want to put that many Roman artists were particularly skilled at creating portraits. Now, when I'm typing this out, it may be a really long quote, and maybe I don't want to put the whole thing in my essay if it doesn't flow really well. So if your quote's like a few sentences, you can always cut it down when you put it into your essay, if you can. If you need the whole quote so that way the paper makes sense, keep the whole quote. But if you're like, they don't really need to know this part, I just thought it was interesting when I wrote it, and when I was researching it, then you don't need it. But when you're taking notes, you want to kind of write down as much as you can, so that way you don't have to look at websites and try and look at a website and then, I put this quote, but I forgot where it came from, and then it just makes it really difficult. So we can guess a great deal about individual All right, so I'm done here with my quote, and what I need to remember, what I didn't start my quote with, since it is word for word, are these quotation marks. And actually what I'm noticing is that I forgot to put quotation marks on the other document as well, because these aren't my own words. So I need to make sure that I add a quotation mark here at the beginning and then at the end. So that way when I'm putting it into my paper, I'm not putting it in and not putting that quote there. I want to make sure that I am putting quotation marks here so that way my reader knows this is information that I got from a whole different source. This is not my ideas. So does it say showed or show? Show. Okay. So yeah, so I want to make sure I have these quotation marks here. Now, the title of the article, what I'm going to do, since it says book or website right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the title of the section. So your section might be Greek mythology or Sparta and Athens. You want to make sure if you're using your book, you want to make sure you put the section's title here. Legacy is the title. The author's name, it's two authors. Let's see here. So we have, our authors are Dr. Stanley Bernstein, and Dr. Richard Cheek. All right, so we have our two authors. The date, let's see here. So the date the book was published is the day that we want. So it was in 2006. That's all the information that it gives us, and that's okay. We know that this was in 2006, and the title is World History, Ancient Civilizations. All right, so I have my title here. I have the date, which we just have the year, and that is okay if that's all the information that your source gives you. Sometimes you won't even have a date. We have our section of our book here. All right, so I have that. So I didn't have anything here about the portraits. Now, what I noticed when I was reading was that the portraits were done in the frescoes. So, I might not even want to put that. If it's too hard, I just have to have some sort of examples. And I already have examples of sculptures and I already have examples of frescoes. And yeah, it would have been cool to also get portraits, but the portraits were done in the frescoes and the sculptures. So what I can do is also talk about how they were done in frescoes and sculptures. So I can put that they were done, and then I can add in how I read about how they were connected with the frescoes and the sculptures. So that's done right there. So I have my body paragraph for topic 1 done. So then I'm going to scroll back up to the top here. And I'm gonna see body paragraph 2. My topic is the engineering techniques, the vaults and the arches. So I'm gonna scroll down here, body paragraph topic 2. Go ahead and just go up a little bit so that way I have plenty of room. All right, so that's paragraph 2. So now I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to put that in. Let's see what we can get. All right. Oh, a Khan Academy one. Let's see what Khan Academy has to say. about Roman architecture. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read this, and then I will come right back when I have some information to share with you guys. Okay, guys, so I just finished reading Roman architecture from the Khan Academy. So I really liked this article. It had a lot of good information. So I went and I copied and pasted quotes from the article that talked about it. And I revisited my research question while I was looking at it, and it said, what were some examples of the Roman legacies in architecture? So I found a bunch of different legacies. So it wasn't necessarily with the vaults and the arches, though it is mentioned there. But like I'm going to mention how they came up with Roman concrete, and that kind of led the basis to being able to make these fun and creative shapes. But then I'm going to go into talking about the aqueducts, and I'm going to be talking about the archways, and the colonnades and the fountains that they built. Those are some examples. I'm going to talk about the amphitheaters, like the Colosseum, which is an example, and explain what they did there. And then also talk about how they built bridges and they made roads also with their architecture. So I'm going to have all these quotes. Now, I might not use all of them, but I really like the information. And if I want to put all of them in there, I can. But if I only want to put a few, I only need a few. So what I just wanted to go over, I haven't done my source part yet. So I wanted to go over that with you. So I found a really good source, and I don't want to forget where I found it. So I'm going to go through each of these steps. So first one is title of the article. Well, the title is right up here. It says Roman architecture. So I'm going to highlight it, copy, go ahead and paste that in there. Now it will be big, so you're going to have to reformat it so that way it's a little smaller, so that way it fits in nicely. So the author name of the website. Now you can see it's not right underneath. For the Khan Academy articles, if you guys bump into these as well, you're going to have to scroll all the way at the bottom, and at the very bottom it is going to mention all the resources that she used, but also say her name. So her article, this one was written by Dr. Jessica Ambler. So I'm going to copy that, go ahead, put that in my author's name right here. It's a little big, but not too big, so I'm going to leave it alone. The date, let's see, does it say when it was done? Let's see, at the very bottom, anything? No. All right, so it doesn't have a date, and that's okay. Sometimes our essays won't, like our sources won't have specific dates. You just want to make sure that it is on a credible website. So this one is from Khan Academy, so that's fine. And if it doesn't have a date, you can just write N-A, which means non-applicable. It doesn't have one. And then my website. So I'm going to go ahead, just copy my website. And that way too, the way that I'm copying my website in here, if for any reason I want to go back and reread and maybe I can find different information, I now have the link here so I can go right to the article that I had. So I got this all from the same thing, so I can copy this whole block and I can just go ahead and paste them on in here. So while I'm pasting these in here, if you guys, again, have any questions about this, please come to tutoring. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, from 12 to 2. We can go over specific parts that we're doing, okay? So let's go ahead into body paragraph 3. So we're going to scroll back up to the top here, and we're going to have our third one, which was Virgil, Ovid, and satire. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and put that in our topic. And this is the last part of my planning, because with planning, we really only need notes on our body paragraphs, and we need to know what topics we're gonna cover in our body paragraphs. So I'm gonna go ahead and post that in there, and let's see if we can find something. Now, I may not want to go in and do all three. Maybe I just want to do one at a time. Maybe that'll be better search options. So I see here Virgil, he's a Roman poet. So let's see if we can find some. Oh, Britannica has a biography on him. So I'm going to go ahead and go into here. All right, so I see we have our author here, we have our title. All right, and it is Encyclopedia Britannica, so that looks good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give this a quick read, and then I will bring you guys back in. Okay, guys, so with that last article, that one was a really good one. I really liked all of this information that they had on Virgil. I got some good examples of what Virgil did, who he was, how he was regarded by other Romans. So that's all like really interesting information that I went ahead and put into my research paper notes. So I did that there. Now, what was interesting about this article is that it also talks about Ovid, but when it talks about Ovid, there's actually a link to another Encyclopedia Britannica site that gave me that. So sometimes articles will have these links here, so that way you can click on it, and when you click on it, it will take you to what it's talking about. So I found an example of his work as well. So, and there's a link here so I can get more information about these two examples. But I just need to talk about these examples and what they were. So they talked about their imaginative interpretations of classical myths, and they're an example of supreme technical accomplishment. So I'm going to talk about these two examples in my paper. Now, with Encyclopedia Britannica, what's so awesome about this site is that it has this cite function. So you can click on this and we'll give you everything. So when it says contributor, that's author. So the author for this one was Edward John Kennedy. The article title was Ovid. The date it was published was January 1st, 2020. And then our website was right here. You do not have to write the access date. I just want to see that date published. So, and it did that on both of my sites. So that way I could look at this and copy it into here. So now what I've done is I've done all my notes. I've done notes on what I want to include on my research paper. So the next step that I would do is I would go to my outline. So I have my introductory paragraph here. So I could go in order, or I could go straight to my body paragraph. Now, I want to read this box right here, the transitions you could use to help the flow from paragraph to paragraph. Now, this is really important because I want to make sure that not only do I have the information in the research paper, but that it flows nicely and it's easy and enjoyable to read for my readers. So, what I'm thinking is that it's probably not a contrast because it's not mentioning the difference between two things. It's not really chronologically, and it's not comparing anything. I may just be using to explain something to make it clear for my reader. So I may just be focusing on this one right here, the clarity, because I even see like for example, and my research question asks for example. So that may be the way that I'm going, and continuation might also be it. And then at the end, I'll probably be doing my conclusion one. So clarity and continuation are probably the two that I'm going to be using the most in my research paper. So that's good that I already know exactly what direction I'm going in, which is why I wanted to take a look at the transitions before I even started to do any of that. So let's try the topic sentence. So my topic sentence, it talks about what body paragraph is going to be about. Make sure I have a transition word or phrase at the beginning of my sentence. Okay, so let's see. For my transition word or phrase in the beginning of my sentence, let's see which one I should use. So I have Additionally, from another two. So what I could do is, since I need that transition word, it might be easier for me to do my introduction first and then be able to transition from my introduction to body paragraph 1. So here is your work. It says a creative opening to catch your reader's attention. So I want something really cool or interesting, or a quote or a story. So an interesting fact. So from everything that I read, I read about how Romans influenced art, architecture, and today. So I read about that. So that would be an interesting fact. I could ask an interesting question. Have you ever thought about why art, architecture, and literature are the way they are today? So have you ever thought about why art, architecture, and literature are the way they are today? So that kind of makes them think, I never really have thought about that. I wonder if this paper is going to tell me why they're like that. Find a quote to use. So from my book, from my textbook that I had, I could find an interesting quote. So let's go ahead and pull that back up here. So let's see. Let's see if I can find an interesting quote. So I'm going to pause you guys, and then I will be right back with an interesting quote to share with you. Okay, guys, so I'm back. So I was looking at the book and I found this one right here. So it talks about the architecture and the art. And I have the quote here. It says, Roman appreciation for beauty can be seen in their architecture and their art. So that might be an interesting thing for my readers to see as a quote, and use that to kind of reel them in. And then I would cite my quote right there as well. So I would do it with the last name of Bernstein. Copy this into that. And then I'm going to put the title of the book right here. So I'm going to do the title of the book. Hold on 1 second, guys. All right, guys, so I had my quote here, and I'm going to quote it right here and cite where I found that information. So I put Bernstein and Sheik, World History, Ancient Civilizations. I did that for just the purpose of letting my readers know that this isn't my own words. I got it from this source. And then it says here to write a story hook to catch your reader's attention. So when you're writing a story hook, what you want to do is kind of put yourself in that time period. So, and you want to kind of transform your readers into that time period too. So throughout all the information that I read on the art and architecture and literature, you could put like, imagine, which is spelled wrong. Okay, you are living in Rome and you All right, so I'm going to write out my story. I'm going to be right back to let you guys see my finished product. All right, guys, so I'm back. So I left with just imagine you are living in Rome and ready for your first trip. So that's where I left off. So let's read the whole thing. So my story hook to catch my reader's attention for my Roman essay is imagine you are living in Rome and you are ready for your first trip to the Colosseum where you will watch gladiators fight. You notice the sculptures all around the city and the spectacular archways that you walk through to the Colosseum. In your home, you have a beautiful fresco painting of nature on one of your walls. In your home, you've been reading the poetry written by very talented authors. Your society is filled with beautiful and varied works of art. So notice that this is already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 5 sentences already done for your introduction paragraph. And we want to make sure that our introduction paragraph is at least 4. So that's a good start to make sure that you hit that criteria that you need to hit. So the story hook might be a fun way for you to kind of immerse yourself into that time in history and get a lot of creative writing done in something that's not really filled with creativity. It's more filled with informational fact. So this would be a good way to do that if you are on the more creative side. If not, no big deal. You also have your interesting fact, interesting question, or quote you can use as your creative opening to catch your reader's attention. So now I have my background information. So preview the main points of your essay to your reader. So you're going to write in this essay, we'll talking about whatever's in paragraph 1, paragraph 2, and paragraph 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reference back to my research paper notes. So for my topic 1, I have specific art forms used. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put this right in here. But then I'm also going to remember that I have to first lowercase this. So in this essay, I will be talking about specific art forms the Romans used, such as frescoes, and sculptures. Perfect. All right. It's frescoes and sculptures, and then I'm going to put my topic 2, the engineering techniques used with architecture is my second one. The engineering techniques used in building used in Roman architecture. And lastly, what I'm going to be talking about is, let's see, topic 3. Oh, Virgil and Ovid. I didn't even do satire because Virgil and Ovid had enough information for me. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to talk about and the Roman poets Virgil and Ovid. So I'm going to be talking about those 3 things. So this is my topic sentence for my essay. So this is my topic sentence. And then down here, it talks about what you intend to explain to your readers and what is the main idea of your essay. For this one, you can restate your research question in a way to write your thesis. So let's go back to our research paper notes. At the very top here, I have my research question. So here, I'm going to put my research question just as a reference. So for this one, it said, what influence did Julius Caesar have on the Roman government's transition from a republic to an empire? And then the thesis statement is Julius Caesar had a present influence on the Roman government transitioning from a republic to an empire. All right, so I see what they did there. They switched this around to say that he did have an influence, and then they just changed transition to transitioning. So that way it was just a different form of transition. So what are some examples of Roman legacies in art, architecture, and literature? I could put there are many examples of Roman legacies in architecture, art, and literature. So I can go ahead and just copy and paste that. There are many examples of Roman legacies in art, architecture, and literature. So that is my statement. That's what I believe, and I have information that backs that up. So that is my thesis statement. So I'm already done with my sentences. So I have one sentence here, two sentences here. Let's see. I may want to, if I pick one of these that have one sentence, that's going to be a total of 3 sentences, and it needs to be a minimum of 4. So I would have to put another sentence that kind of buffers all 3 and makes it one big thing. So we will see that when we start writing it out fully. So now we have our body paragraph. So if my thing says here, my thesis statement, and the thesis statement is going to be the last sentence of my essay. So there are many examples of Roman legacies, art, architecture, and literature. So my topic sentence would be about art. So let's see, I want to do clarity or continuation, conclusion. Which one would I like to use as my transitional word since in the beginning of my sentence? So let's take a look at what we have. And then once I have it, we'll come right back. Okay, guys, so I was looking at my transitional words. Now, it is very difficult to use these specific ones with your thesis statement. So from your thesis statement to body paragraph 1, I'm not requiring that you have a transitional phrase or transitional phrase or word in the beginning. What I want to make sure that you do is that you look at your thesis statement and you focus on what you're mentioning first. So in my case, it's art. So what I'm going to do is mention that there are different examples of Roman art that have become legacies throughout time. So this sentence connects to what I just talked about in my thesis. So then I could put for example, the Romans had an art form known as frescoes. So then I know, and like this isn't my topic sentence, but since I had that in there, that's the way I want to go, I can go ahead and put that in there so that way when I'm writing my next part, I know what I want to do first. So here you need supporting details about your topic. So you need at least 2. So since I'm going to talk about frescoes and sculptures, I can talk about both of those things, and I have already notes on my research paper notes form about the art sources that I want to use. So what I can do is I can look at this. So I need 2 details about my topic, so I can use facts, examples, experts' opinions on the subject. So what I'm going to do, so I want to mention frescoes first. So for example, the Romans had an art form known as fresco. So I should probably let my reader know what frescoes are. So I would use this quote from my notes. So this would be the first one. So for example, the Romans had an art form known as fresco. Wall painting frescoes are the use of stucco to create relief effects that were commonly used by the 1st century BC in public buildings, private homes, temples, tombs, and even military structures across the Roman world. And then I could put, because I want to continue, I could put another example of Roman art would be known as sculptures. So this is like my transitional sentence that goes into the next part of what I'm going to be writing about. So now I just have to go to my research notes paper and I'm going to look for stuff about sculptures. Oh, so sculptures also became more monumental with massive, large extemporaries. Okay, so what I'm thinking about is doing this one. But what I could do now that I'm rereading my notes, I have here a specific example of what I'm doing here. So I could put that this is frescoes. I could do a specific example of a fresco done during the ancient Roman period would be known as the, and what was it called in my notes? Was this? And since I'm just copying the names, there you don't have to do it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do quotation marks here, but you don't have to cite it. This is just letting someone know that this is the title of an artwork, and since it's the title, I'm going to also italicize it. So I'm going to go there, I'm going to unitalicize, and then to add to this detail about my fresco that I'm talking about, I'm going to add that whole entire quote. So I put, for example, the Romans had an art form known as frescoes. Wall paintings, frescoes, and the use of stucco to create relief effects were all commonly used by the 1st century BCE in public buildings, private homes, temples, tombs, and even military structures across the Roman world. A specific example of a fresco done during the ancient Roman period would be known as the House of Livia on the Palatine Hill in Rome. So then what I would do is I'd put the quote here. So I'm going to grab my research paper here. And notice that it created a box. Now, if you're copying and pasting from your notes section, you have to make sure that it doesn't cover the box, just like this, okay? So you need to make sure that it just covers the writing. So if it's like this, you're good. But if it covers the whole box like I just did, then it will create that box for you. See, now it doesn't do that and it does it in quotes. Now remember too that you need those citations. So you can put here, just add citation if you don't know how to do it, but that just makes me remember, hey, remember you need to add that citation. Okay, so you want to make sure that you put that there just as a reminder that, hey, I'm going to put this citation here. Okay, so now I want to talk about my sculptures. So now I can put in here, I could put another example of a Roman art form that became a legacy was their sculptures. There we go. All right, so then I can put this quote here. Now, see how it's covering this whole box? that whole box is no good. You want to make sure that it is just covering this. So you need that white in between that blue to make sure that you are not copying the box and pasting it in, that you are just copying this. And then I'm going to put my add citation right here so that way I don't forget. Came, past tense, perfect. All right, so we have another example of the Roman art form that became a legacy in their sculptures. So I have my two details. Now, I have my one detail about the frescoes, and then I also have it about this. So if I just wanted to do it on frescoes, I could, but because I really want to make sure my reader knows about the multiple, that there were different examples of Roman art, not just frescoes, but also sculptures, I could put that in there. So because I put in that different examples, I want to make sure that I not only get frescoes, but I get the sculptures as well. So I could do this, and what I could do if I wanted it to kind of mirror what I did with the frescoes, I could find a specific example. I could go back into my research, find a specific example from the Roman art form of sculpture. Okay, so now that I have my two details that I need, because I need at least two, I could do more. So like if I wanted to do multiple examples of different frescoes, I could, or if I wanted to do multiple examples of the sculptures, I could, but I just need two examples to get a three. So I'm going to stop right there. I have three examples technically, so I'll be good there. I think I'll make sure I get my three by making sure I have both of these filled out. And they are done right, and I just need to add my citation. So let's see. Remember, we need to list our sources that we're using. So I need to list my source right here. Now I already have that done in my notes. So I have my Roman art, and it came from the same source. So I can make sure. Again, remember I can't do the block because then it'll create that. So see how this whole thing is filled in blue? It's going to create that block. So I need to make sure I get it right here. All right, perfect. So I have this, and I can format this to where it doesn't have those bullet points anymore. So that way it just looks like the example up here. Okay, and now since both of these came from the same one, I can just copy this, and I'm going to delete that so it doesn't do the bullets. All right, so now I have my sources. So now I know where my sources are from. So I need to make sure that I'm citing it within. Remember, I wrote add citations here so that way I didn't forget. So now what I'm doing down here is I'm creating those citations. So for their source, they had The Roman Republic by Donald L. Watson. And I can see here you need the last name of the author. All right, so they highlighted that in red, and the title of the article, oh, I see. So it says Watson, comma, Roman Republic, and you need to make sure it's in those parentheses right there. Okay. If there is no author or title, you can use the website. Okay, so they had this one, and it was National Geographic was their website. So the way that they did that was they did National Geographic, comma, and then the title. Okay, so for my source, let's take a look at this. So I have Mark Cartwright. So Cartwright is the last name. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to put that here. Cartwright there, and then the title of the article was Roman art. Perfect. All right, so I have my title right there. So I can go down here and I can paste it right inside. Beautiful. All right, so now I'm just going to format it so it looks normal and it looks just like the one above. I'm going to go ahead and take the underline out, make it all black color, make it so it's not bolded. So this is what it's going to look like when I cite it inside of my paper. So it's going to look just like this. With parentheses and everything, it has Cartwright and Roman art. So I'm actually going to do this, and I'm going to put my citations right in there, so that way I don't have to remember anymore because I created my citations, and I'm just going to go ahead and put those in there. All right. So basically, I've written my first body paragraph. I have my topic sentence right here. There are different examples of Roman art that have become legacies throughout time. For example, the Romans had an art form known as frescoes. Wall paintings, frescoes used the stucco to create relief effects were all commonly used by the 1st century BCE in public buildings, private homes, temples, tombs, and even military structures across the Roman world. And I have my citation. A specific example of a fresco during an ancient Roman period would be known as the House of Livia on Palatine Hill in Rome. An outstanding example is the 1st century BCE House of Livia on the Palatine Hill in Rome, which includes a 360 panorama of the impressionistically rendered garden. And then I have my citation. Another example of a Roman art form that became a legacy was their sculptures. Sculptures had become more monumental, with massive, larger-than-life statues of emperors, gods, and heroes, such as the huge bronze statue of Marcus Aurelius on horseback, now in the Capitoline Museum in Rome. So I do have my examples cited right there as well. So I have examples, specific examples of both of these, so that answers my research question, which was down here. So what were some examples of the legacy? So I have two examples right here of the art. I have the House of Livia and I have the Marcus Aurelian as well. So and that's right here. When you do this, when I copied and paste, I made sure to just copy and paste straight up. You want to make sure that you format it too. So in your paper, it should not have any bolded words. It should just look like you typed it out word for word. So that way the links, and we want to make sure these links are gone as well. So to get rid of links, you want to make sure that you left click on it, from what I remember. Let's see. And then you're going to put remove link. So if you have a link on something, you want to make sure you remove the link. Yeah, there we go. Because you can get to the paper when you click on this. Okay, so we have that. And we have our details here. The only last thing we would need is a concluding sentence. So that's going to let my readers know that I'm done talking about art form and that I'm going to be switching into the architecture. So the body paragraphs are done exactly the same. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my next two body paragraphs, go through those, and then I will come back into the video to explain how we can write our concluding paragraph. Alright guys, so I'm back. I just wrote the body paragraph 2 and 3, so I just want to take a look at those very briefly. They were done the same way as I did the body paragraph 1. So I have my topic sentence here. Another legacy that was left by the Romans was their architecture, because I want to talk about the topic of body paragraph 2, which is their architecture. And I have right here, I have a number of facts and examples that I wanted to use, because the architecture I found was the most interesting for me. So I start off here talking about the Romans' concrete, and you can see that I added the citation, and I started it with a sentence that was my own. So that way I can just basically copy and paste it into my rough draft. So I have that here. I have 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, what I wanted to show you about this was this right here. So the source for detail. You'll notice that on your sheet it says like source for detail for number 1, number 2. I did so many, and they were all from the same source. So you can retype it and put source for detail number 1 through 5. So that way you know that all those details came from Dr. Jessica Ambler. Okay, you don't need to type out the same thing 5 different times. That's insane. Okay, so you don't have to do that. So then I have my source here. So I know that the last name of my author is Ambler and that my title is Roman Architecture. So I know that my citation is going to be Ambler, Roman. Okay, so just to reiterate, so we can see here that my last name of my author is Ambler and that the title of my article is Roman Architecture. So I know that my citation is going to be Ambler and Roman Architecture, which then I copied and pasted and I just put that right into, like, right after my quote. So that way when I copy it all and I put it into my rough draft, that I already have that. So that way I don't get points off for not having it, since I already have it written in here. So why not just put it in there to make sure that I don't lose points on it, you know? So then I have my body paragraph 3, and my topic sentence was about the last thing that I wanted to do. So I wrote the last legacy of the Roman culture I would like to mention is its literature, specifically its poetry. So that way they don't think that I'm talking about satire, dramas, historical works that they did. I'm specifically focusing in on one example, and that's going to be of its poetry. So then I only have 2 examples. I have one of the poets, Virgil, and I have his example of his poetry here. And then I have 2 examples of the poet Ovid. Now, my quote just said Roman poet, but what I did was I put in brackets Ovid, so that way my readers know that I'm talking about Ovid. I did mention it here when I put another poet I would like to mention is Ovid, but I don't want them to think that I didn't have it that it was about a different poet. So I just went there to help with the reader's comprehension, and that way they could easily understand what it was about. So I had 2 different sources, even though they were both from Britannica, and I was looking at Virgil, and then I clicked that link that sent me to that Ovid website. So right here, remember when I was over at Virgil, it had that link for Ovid, and I clicked on it, and when I clicked on the Ovid link, it sent me to the other page. So let's see if I can find that just to remind you guys of it. So yeah, so when I clicked the link, it sent me to Ovid. So when it went over to Ovid, I was on a different thing, and it was written by a totally different person. So even though it was the same site, I just needed to remember, oh yeah, it was by a different person. So I put the title of my article as Virgil, and Robert Derek Williams wrote that one. So now I know that my citation is Williams, Virgil. And that Ovid, that article was titled Ovid, but it was written by Edward John Kennedy. So I know that it's going to be Kennedy, Ovid is my citations, and I have them written right here. So we have Williams, Virgil, Kennedy, Ovid. I have not copied and pasted, so I'm going to copy Kennedy and Ovid and make sure that's on my second detail that talks about Ovid. I want that to be right there. And I want my first one, copy it here, just so that way I don't forget. It would be so silly of me to have written all this stuff out and then forget to put that citation. So now that it's already there, I can just copy and paste over. So I have my citations. I have all that stuff. I look like I'm doing pretty good. So now I have my conclusion paragraph. This is the last final paragraph of our research paper. So we're going to go over our conclusion paragraph. So we're going to be typing out our thesis in a different way to start off this paragraph. So we may need to go back up to the beginning, and that's going to be in our green boxes. We're going to look at our thesis statement. So I'm going to actually copy my thesis statement, copy this. I'm going to bring it on down, to my conclusion, and I'm going to put it right here. So that way I can just look at it, so that way I can think about it and type it all at the same time. That makes it easier for me, and it might be a way that makes it easier for you. So my thesis statement was, there are many examples of Roman legacies in art, architecture, and literature. So to type this out, so I'm going to reword it. So I would type out in a different way. The Romans left many examples of their legacies in art, architecture, and literature. So now what I want to, examples, it's plural. So now what I want to do is I want to summarize the main points of my essay. So I'm going to go back up to my first body paragraph, and that is in the orange boxes. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to just read what I talked about. So I talked about frescoes and what they are and the sculptures. So I would simply just go down to my main points. So the main point from my body paragraph was that there are two specific examples of Roman legacies. The first being frescoes, which are, and I just want to go back and look at what they are so I can like put it in my own words, just to kind of remind my reader at the end what exactly it was about. The use of stucco. Okay. So, which are paintings on the walls that are done with the use of stucco. The second being sculptures, which were made large and present around the cities. From paragraph 2, I talked about there are many different types of architecture used in the ancient Roman period. Some of those included so we're going to go up to the blue, and I want to look at all 5 of those. So I talked about the aqueducts, I talked about arches and fountains, and amphitheaters. So I'm going to go back down here. Some of those included the aqueducts, arches, fountains, and the amphitheater. Now, it's okay if I spell them wrong. I just have to make sure that I change them to be correct before I put them into my final. All right. So there are many different types of architecture used in the ancient Roman period. Some of those included the aqueducts, arches, fountains, and amphitheaters. Now remember, I don't have to write what the aqueducts, arches, fountains, and amphitheaters all are. I did that with the frescoes and the sculptures, just as like just a reminder, but it's not so many of them, and I'm only going to do that to these ones here. So then I'm going to talk about how there were also two poets known as Virgil and Ovid that made a lasting impression on literature, specifically poetry, that was done during the ancient Roman period. And now, my concluding sentence, this is the last sentence of my entire research essay that signals to the reader that I'm done. So I want to put in conclusion, there were many different examples of Roman legacies mentioned in this paper, and there are many more out there for you to learn about. All right, so I'm making that my concluding sentence because it ends, kind of also restates my thesis again, just one last time, saying, in conclusion, there are many different examples of Roman legacies mentioned, and I'm going to put, instead of in, I'm going to put throughout this paper, and there are many more out there for you to learn about. So that also gives it to my reader, like, all right, I mentioned some of these, now you go out and see and learn about the mosaics and learn about the satire and the dramas and all these other different things that they did. So this paper informs my reader, and it does do research on it, though there are, like, it would be so long if we covered everything, but this is a good start for someone who was interested in the different forms of the legacies that were done through art, architecture, and literature through the Romans during the ancient period. This is a good start for them. So now I have my research paper notes done. I have my research paper outline done. And now that I have my outline done, I'm basically done with my paper. So now what I'm gonna have you guys see me do is you're gonna see me write the paper real quick, and it's going to be super easy. And as long as you guys are doing your research paper notes and you're doing your outline, doing the paper is going to be so easy for you guys. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the story hook. I really like my story hook. I think it's great. So I'm going to go ahead and put that there because I really like it. I think it's really good. So I'm going to put that there. So that's going to be the beginning of my introduction paragraph. So I'm going to do my hook. I'm going to do my topic sentence. I'm going to grab my thesis statement right after. Put a space there. No longer need my notes, so I'm just going to close out of that. And I don't need this or this, so I'm just going to focus on my two tabs right here and go back and forth. So, and now I'm going to grab my thesis statement. And my thesis statement is, there are many examples of Roman legacies in art, architecture, and literature. All right, so let's see. We have 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 sentences, so it's in between 4 and 7, so that's perfect. I'm going to go ahead and just indent it right there. Actually, going to... There we go. Now I'm going to indent it. Perfect. So that's my introduction paragraph. So now the next thing that I need is my body paragraph. So let's go down here, grab that topic sentence, and see, like, I've already kind of written it out in my outline. I use those steps to plan it out. So now all I really have to do is go and copy and paste. So I'm going through and I added my citation so I didn't forget, but that's because I knew that this is what I was going to be doing. So I want to make sure that I'm going through each one and I'm like double checking. All right, yeah, I have my citation there. I can copy it and I can go ahead and just put it right in there. All right, cool. Nice. So now I can go down to my next body paragraph down here. All right, I have my citation, perfect. All right. So I'm gonna grab this one, copied it. I'm going to now put it here. Now remember, I did not put my concluding sentence, so I'll still have to go back and write my concluding sentence for my paragraphs, but that's okay. So I'm going to just put that there. Now I have these numbers here, but I'm just going to erase them because I already put in those sentences in between that talk about it before the quote. So you don't just want a paper full of quotes. Like, that's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to write a research paper, and the way that you write a research paper is just the way that we did it. So I created these sentences that go as like a buffer. You want that buffer sentence before you mention it. And that's from your own learning, your own words. You didn't grab it from a paper. You didn't paraphrase anything. You did it from in your own words. That's you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just do that. Remember, I need my conclusion paragraph or my conclusion sentence. I'm going to go down here to paragraph 3, my purple boxes. I need that topic sentence. Copy that, paste it because it's mine. And now I need my thing about Virgil as one of the poets that created a legacy in literature. My other poet, Ovid, and his example. And I have at least 2, which is perfect. 2 gets me a 3. So we're doing good. All right, we cited our sources. So now I'm on my conclusion paragraph. I'm on those red boxes. So I have to make sure that when I go into my research paper that I give them that space, because now it's a new paragraph. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy all of this. And then when I get into here, you have to just make sure that you erase the main point, because that doesn't make sense. We want it to be in a paragraph form. There are. And this is all your own writing. Like, I didn't copy any quotes from anything. I went back and I looked at my quotes, but that was just so that way I could summarize it in my own words. So that was done there, but I need my one last thing, which is my conclusion. So in conclusion, and that is my last sentence there. All I have to do next is just go through and write my concluding sentences in my paragraphs here. So what I want to do is I want to reread, and then I'm going to create those concluding sentences. So just like I did it here to let my reader know that I was done, I want to let my readers know that I'm done talking about art. So what I could do next is talk about, so I would kind of summarize it a little bit. So this one was about the frescoes and the sculptures. So in addition to sculptures, and frescoes, there is another type of legacy the Romans left behind within their architecture. So not only does it summarize what I just did. So I put, in addition to sculptures and frescoes, there's another type of legacy the Romans left behind within their architecture. And then you go into your next sentence that says Romans were very creative in their architecture. So it kind of flows together. So then this one, I would talk about how there are a number of examples of how the Romans put to use their invention of Roman concrete. The last legacy so I already put that one there for the last legacy I would like to see. So there are a number of examples of how the Romans put to use their invention of Roman concrete. There are a number of examples of how the Romans put or used their own concrete. All created legacies from the Roman legacies in architecture from the Roman culture. So this one doesn't introduce it, but there's two different ways. There's multiple different ways, honestly, that you can write a conclusion sentence. So the first one, I did it as a way to introduce my next one. But because my first sentence here talks about how the last legacy of the Roman culture I would like to mention is literature, I can just go ahead and end my thought with architecture and put two sentences here. And sometimes you might do one sentence that's really good that just ends your thought perfectly after a quote, but then sometimes you need a couple other sentences to kind of really wrap up what you want your readers to really gather. So what I really wanted them to gather was that there were a number of examples of how the Romans put their use of their invention of Roman concrete, because like without that concrete they wouldn't have been able to make the aqueducts or the arches the way they did, or the amphitheaters. So I want them to kind of have that be their takeaway, and then just reiterate that these all created legacies within architecture from the Roman culture. And then I would do the last legacy of the Roman culture. So now I'm talking about this poet. So I would then talk about how these two poets were very important in Roman culture and continue to be an important part of literature's history. All right, so these two poets were very important in Roman culture and continue to be an important part of literature's history. So then I would then go to my conclusion. All right, and there you go. There's your research paper. The last things you want to do is just make sure that each paragraph is indented. So you go to here and you press that tab button and indent each of your paragraphs. You're going to go through and just make sure that it is all formatted together. We're going to go ahead. We're going to do Times New Roman. We are going to do font 12. We're going to bold and unbold any of those examples that we didn't do. And then we are going to click this. And it says single space 1.15, 5, and double. What I want you guys to press is double space. It makes it easier on my eyes to read it. And then the last thing that you need to do is just come up with a title. And I'm just going to make mine this: Roman Legacies in Art, Architecture, and Literature. And on this one, you can format it to where your you want to make sure that your title is centered. So you're going to have this one right here, center align. You're going to have that one up, and you want to make sure that it's at least 18. If it's too big, 18, you can go to 14, but you want to make sure that it stands out. So I know that this is my title and that this is the start of my paper. So there you go. So we just wrote an entire research paper on Roman art, literature, and architecture. Now, I did see that there was some stuff. So the last and final thing. All right, and then the last thing, the final thing that you want to make sure that you include is your works cited page. So I'm going to go ahead, click here, work, and you can work cited page. So you're going to go ahead and create a works cited page, and do not worry. I know we haven't done this yet in class, but don't worry, we're going to do it soon. So we have a works cited page. Now, you already have your works cited page done. It's just inside of this thing, okay? So you already put your sources here. So you have your sources for paragraph 3. You can click that. And you want to make sure that you do them in order. So you want to make sure that anything in paragraph 3 for your body paragraph 3, it's at the bottom. And then for paragraph 2, that one would be next. So you could go ahead and copy this. See how I'm putting it above it? You want to take this one out. There we go. So that looks nice there. And then the next thing that you're going to do is paragraph 1. So we have that source right here. There we go. All right, so we're going to copy that. And it was the same for 1 and 2. So you could have just put and then number 2 and then not even have had this one here. See how that works. So then you just put this one because it's our very first one that we cite. We want to make sure that everything doesn't have the link here, that it is black, not bolded. So see how everything kind of looks the same. We can make sure that everything black. We can make sure that everything doesn't have color behind it. And look at that. That looks nice. You can also make sure that it is Time News Roman. Make sure it's 12. And then these should still have the links even though they're black, okay? So there's your works cited page. You have your paragraphs, you have an introduction, you have your conclusion, you have your works cited within it. You have everything that you need, all right? So again, any questions, please reach out to me. Let me know if you need anything when writing this research paper. But yeah, there you go. We did it, guys.